Tim Ferriter has barely even been in jail. In fact, he hasn't even been sentenced yet. And he already has gotten a taste of what it's like to live in a box, and he's ready to go home. We're going to talk about it in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. The sofa's back there. Roscoe's back there too. My name's Paul. I hope y'all are doing well. Welcome to the sofa. Welcome back to the sofa, depending on if you're a regular or not. Today we're going to be talking about a small little update to the Boy in the Box case. I did a video on the trial. It's called The Boy in the Box. Imagine that. This is just a quick update because a lot of you have asked me to go look at this video footage, and so I finally did this weekend, and I was like, oh wow. So I definitely wanted to talk about it, and what we're going to talk about is Timothy Ferriter. Now, this was the father. He was convicted. We'll look at a quick thing to get us like all on board or whatever of the convictions and whatnot. But he was convicted on some child abuse charges for essentially building a box in the garage and making his son live there, amongst other things. So, he was found guilty. And like I said, he's spent not very much time in jail, and he's awaiting sentencing next month, and he wants to get out on bond beforehand. So that's what this is about. We're going to look at essentially just some of how different he looks just after spending not that long in jail, right? So let's do this to begin with. Let's look at a quick clip so we can all get on the same page if you did not follow this, of him being read the guilty verdicts. Just pay attention when you watch this, his demeanor, I don't want to say confidence because it kind of goes away, but just his poise, the color in his face, all that kind of stuff. Let's roll tape.
We, the jury, find as follows. As to count one, we find the defendant guilty of aggravated child abuse as charged in the information. As to count two, we find the defendant guilty of false imprisonment as charged in the information. As to count three, we find the defendant guilty of neglect of a child as charged in the information.
Now you see how he's just kind of staring straight ahead, doing that. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but his wife's in the background. She's crying. She faces these same charges. She's going to be going to trial. Now, one thing that had taken place with this is he was offered a plea deal for like a couple of years, 24 months, I think. Now, in that, he was going to have to essentially testify against his wife, right? Now, in my original video, I did not know that aspect of it. And I'm like, oh, turned 2 years down, and now he's facing up to like 35 or 40 years. I can have a little bit more appreciation and understanding knowing like, okay, they've offered you this deal to basically you all have to, your spouses have to testify and do this and that and the other and all that. So I can get it a little bit more like, okay, I can see him turning that down, right? Nonetheless, though, now he's facing all of this time in prison. Now, remember the irony of this is they made their son, they adopted their son at 2 years old, okay? He was apparently a problem child, a problem teenager, had some issues, that type of thing. Nothing that I saw in the trial was so over the top, but again, I mean, and I'm not justifying what they did, but I'm just justifying I wasn't living there, I wasn't in anybody's shoes there, so there's that. Now, again, like I said, their answer to this was to build a box in the garage and have the son live in there. Use the bathroom overnight in a bucket. Now, also thousands and thousands of hours of like ring footage and stuff like this. This is all on video because they had cameras in there. And the father was just, he was mean to this kid, right? Like screaming and yelling and like just going off. Also, the Ferriters, they had money, right? They were doing very well. They lived in $1 million home, for God's sakes. They had the ability to probably do a lot of other options when it comes to like a problem child that the average person wouldn't have the ability to do. So the fact that they resorted, like their only option or their last ditch option in their world was to build this like little prison in the garage, it blows my mind, right? It's definitely one of these things where you're like, that's what y'all came up with? Let me drink from this cup real quick. So, that being said, now that's what his guilty charges are. Let's watch a couple of clips of news clips to kind of put us on the page of him going back into court asking to be released upon sentencing. Y'all, this is unheard of, okay? It's like, you're guilty. The judge during when it happened, the judge was like, nope, remand him now. He'd been out this whole time, right? So this is a huge change in reality to him. So they remanded him, and then he's going back up saying, hey, let's try and get me back out for like a month before sentencing. I would be very leery about that too, but let's roll tape.
13-page written order from Judge Howard Coates denying a request by Tim Ferriter's defense team to release him on house arrest before his sentencing. The judge wrote in this ruling that the defense failed to provide any evidence that Ferriter would not be a flight risk, and the circumstances changed with his conviction. He added that a significant attachment to the community no longer exists with the sale of his Jupiter home.
Now, they're like, dang, we had sold the house. Man. So there's that. Now, you very quickly in that clip saw an image of him. We're going to look at a longer clip of it, and then we're going to also look at Vinny from Court TV did basically a side-by-side of like, here he is now, here he was like a couple of weeks ago. I mean, this is a little bit longer now at this point that I'm recording it, but you get the drift. Night and day difference, y'all. Night and day difference. Now, let's look at a couple of screenshots of what his lawyer had to say about the judge's ruling. So this first one says, it's an undisputed fact that he had no violations while out on bond pre-trial and doesn't have custody of any of the children. If anyone deserved the court's discretion, it was Tim. The next one reads, we're disappointed about the court's ruling, though we understand it is more challenging to get a bond set after a guilty verdict. Tim is an ideal candidate. He was willing to surrender his passport to alleviate any concerns. Now, again, I'll always say this, and y'all, one thing too, and I don't have a clip of this, but it's in my other video. When he's read his guilty verdict, he stands up and like hugs his wife. This is kind of unheard of behavior for the average citizens. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be able to get up and like hug your spouse like that after you've been found guilty, I can assure you, the average Joe, they wouldn't be letting that happen, right? I do feel like he was definitely getting a little taste like what that little privilege was like, and I don't think that has truly set in yet. Well, it probably has, and that's why he's like, oh my God, get me out of here. Because right here, wanting to get back out, and I'm an ideal candidate, I'm this and that. I get, nobody wants to go to prison, right? It doesn't matter if you're guilty, not guilty, whatever. Like, nobody wants to do that, okay? So we can't fault him for not wanting to go, right? I mean, that's just a human reaction. But it's surprising to me that reality doesn't seem to have set in. Now, again, I'm very curious to see what his wife's going to do. Remember, she still has to go to trial. It ain't looking good. Okay. Now, let's get to the footage real quick of him in court. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up here, and I'm just going to kind of talk over it and point some things out because it's not really important to listen to what's being said, but more or less his body language, okay? So here, let's roll the tape on it. Okay, so look at him, his color, his arms crossed, very nervous, but look at him shaking, like almost involuntarily. Like, this is a traumatized man. Look at this. I mean, this is disturbing. So he hasn't shaved. I mean, he's just, it's shocking, to be quite honest. It's shocking to see what he looks like. He looks incredibly frightened, almost like he wants to cry. Gone is the look, this confident man. Now, already we see, look at how pale he is. He's lost his color. Now, again, he's been out and about, right? Now he's incarcerated. He probably isn't seeing the sunlight very much at all. Okay, now let's look at that side-by-side clip that Vinny did, and just look at the comparison real quick, okay? This is Vinny from Court TV. I always go, Vinny from Court TV. So let's look at it real quick. Okay, so you see this right here, right? Look at how different he is. So see where Vinny's done. Tim Ferriter in court 9/29, 3 days before trial began. This is before the trial, right? Tim Ferriter in court 10/21, requesting bond 1 week after verdict. 1 week. Okay, so here's the thing, y'all. This man has gone into, or is going, he's probably still incarcerated in jail, waiting sentencing, going to prison. Okay, so first of all, he's been out, right? He bonded out. He's been out this whole time, the whole 9 yards, right? So he's just been like, it's been normal to him. There's been no acclimation to what it was going to be because, again, he probably didn't think he was going to go to jail, right? I don't think that he did. I'm sure his lawyer, I mean, obviously they're going to gas him up and be like, no, we're going to get you out of this, whatever. And certainly now looking at, however many years, he ain't getting 24 months. I can tell you that, right? They're going to give him something else. I was thinking about this. It wouldn't surprise me if they're like, how many years did you make your son live in the box? That's how many years you're going to get. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get almost like eye for an eye. Your son lived in the box for 3 years, you get 3 years. Like that type thing, right? I could totally see the judge doing that. I'm very interested to see what he does. Okay. That being said, so, he is going into prison with child abuse charges, okay? A male prison, child abuse charges. This is Mr. $1 Million Home, Mr. West Palm Beach, Mr. You know what I'm saying? Like, Mr. King of the Castle. You heard the way he talked to his son if you watched the trial. So it's not going to be good. This is my guess. And again, I don't know. I mean, obviously I wasn't there with him, whatever. I personally think he's been getting a taste. Number one, take out the charges, take out everything. Pretend no inmates have said anything to him or staff or anything. Just being incarcerated. Just being incarcerated, what that is like. That's probably completely sent him over the edge. On top of that, you have the charges that he has, which don't go over well. It's very likely he could have gotten his butt kicked already, or people are screaming and yelling at him and telling him he's getting ready to go get killed. You know what I'm saying? Pretty much his life is on the line, and he probably is keenly aware of that at this point. I mean, he's basically going to have to be in protective custody from the get-go, and for him, like, if on his side of the fence, he better be hoping that he doesn't get wound up in some kind of, like, I don't know how to say it, but like a CO who's gonna put him out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's gonna be like, yeah, we'll put you in PC, wink wink, you go in this area for a little bit here first, though. You know what I'm saying? Because they work with the inmates a lot of times to kind of do like inmate justice, and so they could have already happened to him. Because to me, looking at him, I'm like, what happened? Like, has he already been violated or something? He seems that traumatized. If this is just trauma coming from just being basic incarcerated, I'm like, oh God, this is going to be really, really bad for him, right? Like, it's not going to, and I'm not trying to sit here and be like, let's coddle him by any means, but I'm just looking at the drastic difference that we see in him after, not that long. I mean, it says right here, this is 1 week after the verdict. Okay, so he's not, the judge isn't going to let him out, because here's my thing. If he's acting like this, this is somebody who would get out and do harm to themselves. You know what I'm saying? If he's not going to try and run or something like that, this is somebody who would probably get out and be like, it's better just to go ahead and end it all, and then the court's going to have that on their hands. You know what I'm saying? It'll be interesting to see. Again, I'm just waiting to see what they're going to do with the wife. I don't know at this point, and again, I'm not no legal person, right? Because they've already got a verdict on him, it's almost like, well, what is there to offer her? You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't, but neither of them took deals. So it's like, we already got him. We're already in this. He's not going to testify against you, so you can't do anything for us because we already got him convicted, right? So it's almost like she's going to be going up against it too. So I would imagine if they're smart, she's lining her stuff up to prepare to go away, and just prepare for that. So we'll see. Now, if you didn't watch the trial, the victim, the child, got up there on the stand and, testified. And he did say basically like, he wanted to essentially for people to forgive the couple. And go past it. The heartbreaking part of it is when, you hear him talking in his depositions, officers testifying, and him basically saying, I ran away because I just didn't feel loved. It still gives me goosebumps. And then you hear Tim yelling at him, and look, I get trouble teen, stuff like that, problem child, they can push you to the edge, 100%. I totally get that, but the reasoning that this couple utilized and what they did is just otherworldly, right? All that money, and it was like you used it to create this really sinister, like, corporal punishment within your home. The other kids weren't living in a box. It's like you know, it's traumatizing for everybody. And I think some of it too is they're too young to realize like that. Like when, and I commend the, whatever that word is, I can't think of it. I think highly of the child, of the victim, is what I'm trying to say, for being like, look, you know what, I don't think they meant any harm. I think people should just, you know, move on, and this, that, and the other. You know, I think when he's older and can, especially once he's older, maybe has kids, goes through that, whatever, and can see like hindsight and be like, whoa, you know, so much could have gone wrong with that, right? So much could have gone wrong. They're lucky nothing ever. What if a fire happened? What if him and his wife had run out somewhere and they got in a wreck and died and he was locked up? I mean, the possibilities. What if he had asthma attack? I'm not saying he had asthma, but you never know, you know. You just don't know. And then on top of it, there's a child in a box in the garage in the pitch dark, going number 1 and 2 in a bucket, and then cleaning it out in the yard. I mean, I would want to run away too, right? So I don't think Tim should be let out. I think he's probably a danger to himself, you know, more than anything, right? There's no telling what he would do. And unfortunately, you know, he's getting not unfortunately, but more like unfortunate in his world, he's getting a taste of his own medicine. Remember, the irony is this. He's literally now living out the life that he so easily handed out to his own son. And clearly, from the looks of it, he can't take it. Oh, God. So, let me know what you think down in the comment section. You know, I'm curious for y'all. Like, first of all, what do you think has happened to him so far? Do you think he has been completely, like, when I say violated, I'm talking about, like, numerous things, right? I mean, this guy seems like he's seen some twisted stuff in 1 week, right? Do we think that's already happened, or do we think this is just somebody who's like, oh my God, I can't make it to my tennis lesson? You know what I'm saying? Because it could be all the above, right? Secondly, I mean, do you think, he strikes me as this, I'm curious what y'all think. If he got out, do you think he would try to run or take his own life? You know, like, it's because to me it would almost be like, you're not going to get far because, I mean, you're on the map, you're on the radar, your case was on TV, right? Like, where are you going to go? You know, your wife's, like, it would be impossible. But he does strike me as somebody that would probably harm himself, so I'm curious what y'all think. Anyway, that's it. Roscoe says thanks for sticking around for this video, and he asks that you drop a few sofas off down the comment section so that we can go down to the comment section, hang out on them, and talk and all that kind of stuff. And until we meet down there, we'll see y'all soon.